Good people deserve good things. And I think hard work, talent, passion, resilience should be rewarded. Hi, my name is Diana Rockwell. I am an opera singer from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Yeah, how did I get into singing is a question that they ask, and that's because of my mom. She's a longtime music educator and private voice teacher. She did her undergrad in music education, then she did her master's in voice actually. And she always played CBC on the radio growing up, and we would listen to Saturday Afternoon at the Opera, which is the Met broadcast from the Metropolitan Opera in New York. And so I listened to opera growing up, and there's these wonderful Canadian CDs called Classical Kids that she would play, which are just little vignette stories fictionally based around the voiceover by the composer, like Bach or Handel, and then they would go on a story, and during the story they would play little pieces of their best known works. And you would kind of get to understand the composer and their music through that. And then also musical theater was a part of our lives too. So Joseph and His Technicolor Dreamcoat, Wicked, Cats, classics like There's No Business Like Show Business, all of those, that was part of my formative years. And people ask me, how long have you been singing for? And I like to say I've been singing since before I can remember. I grew up in a very musical household, and me and my sisters were all very creative individuals. My older sister's an actor, a trained actor. I'm a singer, and my little sister's currently in school for fine arts. But we all grew up dancing and singing and doing musical theater, and then we all kind of chose our specialty, I guess you would say. I finished 6 years of school, and many people would say, go on and do more. A lot of people ask, are you going to do your doctorate? And there's also these things called young artist programs that are usually tied to opera companies, like an internship. And then there are also artist diplomas that are offered by universities and conservatories, which is another piece where you pay tuition and you learn like a student and get experience that way. And so there are people out there that go undergrad, master's, artist diploma for 1 or 2 years. So that's 7 or 8 years of education. And then they get into a young artist program, which is an internship program where finally you get paid. But that's all part of the training piece. And then that's, of course, if you're very lucky to follow the timeline. Oftentimes people take time off, or they have to train for a couple of years, because the frustrating part about the human voice is that it ages as we age. There are people who sing in a certain sub-genre of classical music and opera, which is called the Wagnerian singer. They sing, as you would imagine, works by Richard Wagner, who of course had 110-piece orchestras and wrote like 4-hour-long operas. So you are singing high, you're singing loud for a very long time, and it requires a lot of vocal stamina and a lot of physical strength. And so there are people making their debuts as these roles in their 40s, because their body needed to age up until that point to sing this music that just takes over you, basically. And so I've been told, and this is advice given to many other people in my shoes, but also in different vocal fachs, which are classifications, at different ages and stages in their development, it's okay. You're young, you have time, go off and do something else for a while. You'll be more settled when you're in your 30s, etc., etc. So that's the very frustrating part about opera, is in terms of the operatic style, I'm a baby. I'm a very young singer, and that can be really frustrating because I did 6 years of schooling, and I see my friends who did their undergrad only and got into a job in their field because they were specifically trained for something and now can work for the rest of their life in their field. Or there are people who did a general degree and then did their master's, again, with a specialty in mind, that are then able to work in their field right away and create a life for themselves right away. Whereas in the musical world, in the operatic world, it's a waiting game. And you want to keep training and you want to keep singing while you're waiting, but you also have to feed yourself and you have to house yourself. And so finding a balance between music and life is something that we are all having to face. That is so hard. Oh my gosh, and to have a camera on me. When I was making the decision, and as I keep making the decision to pursue this at a professional level, I think the dream, the goal has always been to sing on a stage. to just be on stage and have that be my profession, have that be my career, because there's nowhere that I feel so alive. There's a magical mixture of things that happens when you're on stage. It's the lights, it's the audience, it's the adrenaline, it's the costumes and the music and the heat of performance of I have worked for months to get to this place and I want to do well kind of thing that I think my teacher once said, you become addicted to. It's that magical experience that really doesn't happen in anything else. Maybe a sports game would be close. But at the same time, it's like, okay, a sports game between two teams, well, you've played this team before. You know, you're at this point in the season, you're gonna do it all again next year. Whereas a contract for an opera more often than not is, in Canada, is about 3 performances. You get to do it 3 times after rehearsing for weeks with the company, after rehearsing for months on your own. And there are 3 unique performances. There never is going to be another like what you have just done, which is kind of magical. And the goal is never to recreate. The goal is never to become cookie cutter, because that takes out the human aspect of music. The idea of this constantly changing art that reflects the constantly changing nature of you as a human is really special. And there's a huge bucket list of roles and composers that I want to sing. For me, that's not linked to a certain place. It's just, I want to sing this one day. And I want to sing this one day because it's beautiful, because it's horrendously challenging. It is the epitome of what I think amazing art is, because this duet has always been a dream of mine, because this aria has always been a dream of mine, that kind of thing. And I think a professional once said in a master class, once you stop learning and once you stop trying to learn and to improve, your career is over. There's a distinct lack of stagnation, and there's a distinct lack of repetition and redundancy to music and to performance that I think I will forever be obsessed with. And I think that will always be the thing that I am chasing or working towards or following that keeps me engaged in music. I guess to any young people that happen to stumble upon my performances, I would hope that they would engage in the music programs that they have around them as a first step. There are people who have joined my mom's school choir for the very first time in the 12th grade, for example, because it was something they always wanted to do, or they happened to watch the drama production the year before and they said, why don't I try that? Like, why don't I? And so for a very young person, I would say engage with what you have around you and try, experiment, but also if you identify people who are passionate, like your music teachers, your music educators, ask them questions. They will have answers for you and they will engage with you back, basically. And that's what I've found too, growing up, and I'm so grateful to always have my mother as a mentor for me, because I was in her school band and her school choir, and I was in her extracurricular youth choir, and she was my music teacher. And also hearing her plethora of students come through our studio, I always had her as a resource, which was really wonderful. And then as soon as I got to university, I was with a pool of other people, but I found myself asking questions and engaging in material. And because my mentors and my professors could see that I was engaging with them, they engaged with me tenfold. And then it just became this really wonderful exchange of information, but also exchange of creativity and passion and experimentation that really makes music making a collaborative effort. It's always in link with somebody else. So if a young person wants lessons, they should go try a lesson or 2 or 3 and see what they like. If they're really interested, they should go listen to the radio, or even like a YouTube playlist or like a musical playlist, and listen to other voices and other genres and other songs, and through that trying, that process of trying out different things, they'll find what they like and don't like. It's just like giving kids a bunch of different foods when they're growing up, and they can identify what they like and what they don't like. Or giving them the freedom to play with different kinds of toys or wear different kinds of clothes. They can identify what they like and what they don't like. And that'll change, and taste will change as you grow up and as you grow older, or you'll grow in or out of things. The people who you engage with will see that you're engaged and will want to engage with you back. If you go about things in a curious, respectful way, chances are good things will come from it. Have an open mind, try, experiment, and ask questions. Failing is also a learning experience. Like, failing is never the end. Failing is not falling into a hole and never being able to get up. Failing is, okay, what can I do better next time? And I'm grateful that I've always grown up with that kind of perspective. Nothing's ever gotten me down for too long. I might have a cry about it, but I'll get up and try again in 20 minutes. You know, and I'm really grateful for that mindset and that mentality, especially when it comes to music, because there is so much bad and there's so much negative and there's so many, nope, try again next year, and thank you, but no thank you. And so being able to get up and try again, it's really important, especially in this profession. But then also getting handed a piece of music or choosing a piece of music and going, this is so hard. This is so hard. Okay, I'm excited. Yes, a challenge. How am I going to puzzle this out? And that was a reaction to music that I definitely developed over the course of my degree. And I'm so grateful that I was given the time and space and encouragement to help myself grow in such a way, because there are people who face challenges throughout their education, or they're dealt a really bad hand of cards, whether that be the program, the teacher, the circumstances in their life that just makes it so impossible for them to remain positive or have a good experience with what they're doing, that it is an absolute deterrent, and it destroys their love of music, it destroys their love of singing, or it just makes them go, okay, I've invested 4, 6, 7 years of my life into this, and it's too much pain, or it's just not worth it anymore. So I'm really grateful that I still love music as much as I do, if not more than when I started my journey, because I've seen so many wonderfully talented people who have just chosen different paths because of unfortunate circumstances. The age-old question that I actually saw a video about recently, it's the stop asking artists, it's what's next? What's next? As if they have to keep pushing themselves to one-up what they've just done. Like at the end of a wonderful performance, they go, okay, what's next? And they go, can I not just stop and appreciate all of the wonderful work that I've just done to get to this place? I'll think about tomorrow kind of thing. No, but what keeps me going and what keeps me interested in and moving on to the next step? That's a really good question. I self-analyze this all the time. It's like, I don't know if it's the fame portion, if it's the notoriety, if it's the being put on a pedestal, being one of the greatest singers of the age. Maybe that is a piece of it. But honestly, when I was making the decision, and as I keep making the decision to pursue this at a professional level, I think the dream, the goal has always been to sing on a stage, to just be on stage and have that be my profession, have that be my career, because there's nowhere that I feel so alive. There's a magical mixture of things that happens when you're on stage. It's the lights, it's the audience, it's the adrenaline, it's the costumes and the music and also the heat of performance of I've worked for months to get to this place and I want to do well kind of thing that I think my teacher once said, you become addicted to. It's that magical experience that really doesn't happen in anything else. Maybe a sports game would be close. But at the same time, it's like, okay, a sports game between two teams, well, you've played this team before. You're at this point in the season, you're going to do it all again next year. Whereas a contract for an opera, more often than not, is in Canada is about 3 performances. You get to do it 3 times after rehearsing for weeks with the company, after rehearsing for months on your own. And there are 3 unique performances. There never is going to be another like what you have just done, which is kind of magical. And the goal is never to recreate. The goal is never to become cookie cutter, because that takes out the human aspect of music. No, I don't think so. I think inherently, just like, I think I had a conversation with a fellow musician, but not a singer, about whether or not everyone can be trained to a professional level as a singer. It was a really interesting debate. And I think there are, the easy answer would be yes. But at the same time, like a high performance athlete, there are so many variables that go into it. That is resources, location, opportunities, like societal culture, gender. And then there are things that you're born with, like height. How long are your legs? How long are your arms? How high can you jump? And then there are things that can be trained, like to a certain extent, strength and speed and height of jumping and things like that. But then there are also a list of characteristics that are, again, more ideal for picking rugby over soccer, or long distance running versus 100 meter kind of thing that will factor into your decision. And then also, not everyone has the funds to become an Olympian. Not everyone can get a university scholarship or can go to university even on scholarship in order to afford like high performance training, for example, after high school. So, and then there might be a kid who is born who's like, would be in the ideal world, the best soccer player that's ever lived. But if their parents don't have the funds to send them to soccer camp to start them on that journey, they'll never know, or they won't be given the opportunity to find out. So it's a really tricky question, but I think that anyone can sing and anyone can learn to sing. How well and varying abilities is absolutely variable, as is anything else. It's not something that you can learn in a textbook. You can't just memorize a bunch of formulas and like be really good at chemistry. But I think everyone can sing well. I think everyone can sing healthily. Everyone can sing to bring themselves and other people joy. And whether they step on a stage as a jazz singer, a classical singer, a blues singer, a rapper, that's up to them.